Awesome.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for popping in tonight, and thanks to Alice and Heidi for inviting me to do this topic. It was actually really fun to kind of figure out what I was going to say tonight and how to do that. So I am going to try to, in a second, try to share my screen. So hopefully that'll work. But I just wanted to start by saying, so we're talking about sharing your story tonight and why that's so important, and then how to do that. And as I was thinking about it, I realized that when we share our story with someone, our isogenic story with someone, why is this such a big deal? Well, we've been talking about connecting leading up until this. And so there might be a lot of people that you've been connecting with and making relationships and hearing about maybe struggles or pain points. And then when you share your story, that's maybe the first time that isogenics enters the conversation to somebody that you're talking to. And so, you want to do it right, and you want to do it in a way that will be impactful for them, and kind of get going from there. So I think that's why it's, not to sound like intimidating, but it's not to be taken lightly, that when you're ready to share your story, that you're ready to do it, and you already know what you're going to say. And I think too, there's not a ton of people on the call tonight, probably because of the holidays and everything, but I think that it's important to say that this is important whether you're just someone who's casually sharing, like you'll tell somebody if somebody asks you, or if you are a business builder, if you're like sprinting right now and trying to make this into a really strong foundation of a business, because isogenics and everything with it is really a gift that we can give to people and share with them, this opportunity to, better their health, better their lives, all these things. So if we can share our story, one of the first times that we connect to somebody and bring up isogenics, if we can do it in the right way, in a way that they can take in and understand, that maybe they'll be more willing to be open to it or think about it, and not just be like, oh, it's just one of those things, because this could be like the one thing that somebody's really been waiting for, right? Like maybe they're desperately need to get their health under control, or they really need to dig themselves out of debt, and if we can share our story that somehow relates to them, that it's that opportunity to do that. So let me try to share my screen here. I put this up. Hold on one second. If I can get this thing. Oh, I already had it up. Duh.
You should be able to. Do you see a share option?
Here we go. Okay. Yes, share my entire screen.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I just put a couple slides together just to, as we talk about how to do this, it makes it a little easier to understand. Okay, so we just talked about that. When you're talking to somebody about your story, maybe that's going to be that lifeline that you're throwing to them. And so we always hear about, a 30-second story. And like I had just said, this is that connection. It's that connection that you've already made with the person, and now you're introducing or going to maybe bring up isogenics for the first time, or maybe it's not the first time, but you're going to bring it up again. And the goal of this is to make you relatable to them, and to maybe even cast a vision for them about why. So what's so magical about 30 seconds? As we know, everyone has short attention spans. This is just how we are in society. And if you keep blabbing, going on for 5-10 minutes about something, they're only going to listen to the first 30 seconds. So really keep it concise to keep their attention. And honestly, when you're talking to somebody and you're connecting about this conversation really should be about them anyway, right? I mean, that's how you probably started it, was you were asking about them, and then they shared something with you with, maybe they said, oh, I really want to lose weight, or I'm so exhausted. It's a conversation about them. And then also 30 seconds will help limit people such as myself that love the details and will just keep talking and talking and basically overwhelm them. So it's a good off. And then, when do you tell this story? So once again, we've talked about, like, we've been focusing on that other person. You've been connecting with them and getting to that problem or pain point with them. And so this is kind of when, this is the example I use, like, you've been talking with them, and then you say, it sounds like you're really struggling with whatever problem it is. Would it be okay if I shared my story with you? This might help. And that's kind of your segue into telling your 30-second story. And what I would say too is, if once you have your story, we all have our stories and we want to, like, share it. And we're so excited about this, but just starting out of the blue, like cold turkey to somebody with your story, maybe one.
Can you hear her?
No, no.
Becca? I think you cut out. Hello?
It's way more effective when you can do it within the context of connecting. So how do you create your own 30-second story if you don't have one already? So Isagenix has a very easy format to follow. And I remember I first learned this at UIA in Chicago with David Woods. And, we had to write it out and practice it with, like, random person sitting next to us, and go from there. So I'm just going to go through here what that template is. And then if you want, if you've never done this before, you can just, as we're going along, down, but really this is something you'll want to work on after the call or this week to really hone it in. And, your story will probably start off like,
Becca? Becca?
list all of those down as well for this time period. And then the next thing you say, after you say, the first part, you move on and you say, and I was introduced to Isagenix by, and then fill in who that was. Was it your friend? Was it a coworker, a relative? And I would say, like, most people probably got introduced by somebody they knew fairly well or really well. Put that adjective in, or that qualifier in. So, my really good friend, or my longtime friend, or my, a coworker I'm close with. Like, if you can say something about that lends a little more credibility to, who told you this. It was somebody you trusted, somebody that was willing to do that. So don't go into a paragraph about this, just like a one word kind of thing. And then after you say who introduced it to you, the next template part, you say, I've been on the project, or I don't know, I thought that sounded a little weird. Like you were on something you shouldn't be, or using Isagenix for however long that is, if it's days or weeks, months, years, just be honest and write in there. And if you're worried, if you're like a very new user and you've only been using the products for 5 days, that's okay. I mean, still say that you're still talking from the heart. You can't lie and say you've been using it for a year when you haven't. But if you have been using this for years, that will lend credibility again to the nature of this. And then you get to the end of your story and you say, and as a result, I am now, and you think of, okay, you started here with Isagenix before Isagenix. What was your problem? You've been using it for X amount of time, and now what has that solved for you? And so list it out. I would suggest, make it concise. I mean, this is where you could go on and just keep talking about all the great things Isagenix has done for you, but focus on that one problem, and make it kind of result oriented. So the easy one example is the weight loss one, right? So say, before Isagenix, I needed to lose 20 pounds. And then, you get to hear, you're like, and now after I've used this for a year, I've lost that 20 pounds. And that's easy because they can feel that result oriented statement. It's also helpful if you can somehow, attach the emotion you're feeling or something heartfelt to that result. So I lost this 20 pounds and now, my kids love that I have all the energy I want to play with them. Or I can finally work out with my husband, or something that, is more of an emotional attachment than just, yeah, I lost the weight, so what? And the last part on the template is you say, I now feel / believe, whatever that is, you believe about Isagenix, how this has helped you, or what is this going to do to you in the future? It's some, your conviction statement about Isagenix is a good place to use this at this time. So, if you're going with the weight loss example again, I now feel like I have a to pay my bills and stay on top of things, like whatever that is, leave it there and then stop. Then you're done. And you should be able to say this whole thing, believe it or not, in about 30 seconds or so. And they'll probably ask questions after you kind of say all this, and that's okay, but go from there. So I will, I'll do my 30-second story now so you can kind of see it all together. Hold on. Does anybody have any questions? I have to click out of here to see the chat, or I can go at the end. Okay, so I'm gonna set my timer to, you can time me to if you want, but I'll put it on here and let's see if I'm able to do it in 30 seconds again. And it's something to practice. I mean, so last week I started practicing again, okay, let's make sure. And you know what? I was not at 30 seconds. I thought I had a pretty short story. It wasn't. It was more like a minute, which is probably 2 times too long. So, I worked at it and, got it a little more concise this week. So, okay, I'm going to start it and we'll go from there. So before Isagenix, I was a new mom and I was struggling to make healthy food choices. And I just didn't feel like that same active and healthy person that I had been before kids. My good friend from college, Heidi, had told me about this awesome nutrition thing that she used to help herself get back into shape after having kids. And now, at 5 years later, I'm still doing this, and I am fitter and leaner now than compared to before kids when I was even doing Ironman triathlons. So it's really opened my eyes to how important nutrition really is. Oh, stop. Oh, I had 37, so I was 7 seconds too long. So I could probably still whittle it down some more, but I talked about, okay, what was going on with me before Isagenix. I was a new mom and I was struggling, and I wanted to feel healthy like I did before kids. Who told me? My friend Heidi from college had told me. And I've been doing this 5 years, so I kind of worked that in there. And I said, okay, so what happened? am fitter, I'm leaner now, and I feel better than, even before having kids and when I was working out a lot. So, and my conviction statement was that this has, really opened my eyes to how important nutrition really is. So that's an example of like how to pull that, how to kind of put that all together. So it takes practice. Oh my goodness. Okay, so develop multiple stories. So remember in the beginning when I said, write down all of the things that was going on with you before Isagenix, like what were all of your problems? What were you looking to help solve? And as you go through, you probably were able to write down several because, I mean, a lot of us have found that Isagenix has affected multiple aspects of our lives, right? So what you can do with that is you should keep each of those, themes, whether if you had a weight loss and energy story, or, then you also developed like a business story as well, keep them separate. Don't put them all into one story. First of all, you won't be able to keep it at 30 seconds. And two, this is helpful because when you're talking with somebody, you're going to be hearing what are they looking a solution for? And it's probably just one. I mean, maybe they'll spill on you like 5 things, but generally there's one big thing that's bothering them. And then you think of, how has Isagenix helped you? And chances are you're going to have something that relates to them. And so, if they're saying they want to lose weight and you had a really good weight loss story yourself, obviously that's what you're going to tell them your weight loss story. Maybe you're not going to tell them your business story, or maybe now you're really rocking your 5Ks. Maybe they're not ready to hear that story yet, but pick the one that relates to them. So your pockets, are filled with these stories. And then you might say, well, what if I don't have a story that matches something that they're talking about? So for me, that was the weight loss thing, actually. Like that's the easiest example to use in general, but I didn't have a big weight loss story. That was never a goal of mine. That never was an issue. So when I'm talking to people that want to lose a lot of weight, me telling them about my story that I just told you probably isn't going to make that big a difference. I mean, maybe, but not really. So that's when you need to know our teammates' stories, because, 3-way calls and connecting with them. So instead of saying, oh, it sounds like you're really struggling with X, Y, and Z, can I tell you my story? You might want to say, oh, I'm really sorry. It sounds like you're struggling to really lose weight and you haven't found this thing. My good friend, Megan, I don't know, I don't have a Megan, but my good friend Megan uses the same nutrition thing that I do, but she was able to lose 50 pounds doing this. Would it be okay if I connect you with her and you can talk to her about, how she did that? You're trying to still relate. And if we all know each other's stories, we can think about that when we're talking to somebody and, immediately think, oh, this person would be great to talk to Allison, or this person would be great to talk to Molly. And, especially if you can't really relate one-on-one with them in that sense. And then the last thing I just wanted to say too, of course, is because when you're talking about your story, it's so important that we say it the right way. I mean, we have to be compliant with how we are telling people things, and you can't with people. It's really like, you really want to say to people like, well, if you just do this, you will lose all that weight. And maybe they will, but you got to say, there are people that have lost a lot of weight, but everybody is an individual. You can tell them about the clinical studies that they've done, the average weight loss in, a 4-week time was what, like 8 or 9 pounds using the isogenic system. You can tell that to them and say that's average. Some people are above, some people are below, but it's really up to, them and what they do. And of course, you're never suggesting that we're going to cure or prevent disease, and you can't promise like certain physical outcomes or financial outcomes, of course. So keep that in mind when you're talking, or even if you are making a post on social media that involves your story. You need to be careful that you aren't saying things that aren't compliant. So that's all I have for that part. Let's see, come out of here now. Again, you can see all your pretty faces. Okay, sorry, I couldn't see the chat, so I'm just gonna, oh no. Can you hear me now, okay?
Yeah, it didn't last the whole time. It would like come and go. So I don't know if it's just where you're at, but it definitely got better. So yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, so then I also wanted to say, when going back to like the teammate stories, I was thinking about this, and like, what would be a great idea is like, I know a handful of people, especially on like collaborating teams, but not everybody. There, now you can see me again. If you need to know some other people's stories, maybe connect with somebody you don't know here and say, hey, would you be willing to hop on the phone for 5 minutes with me? You don't even need that. You'll basically need like 2 minutes, and just share each other's 30-second. Does anybody want to share their 30-second story right now? I know it's the end of a long weekend. It's all right. But yeah, so if you haven't really thought about your story in that sense, maybe you tell people your story all the time, you just kind of wing it, like really use the template, fill it in, whittle it down so that you have 30 seconds. The other like phrase that I hear people use is like your elevator speech, right? So like if you're in an elevator and you have just a few seconds to tell somebody like what it is that you do or what you're so excited about, like you have to be able to be concise. So think about it that way too. And yeah, just keep practicing it and whittling it down, and it'll help you really connect with people in a way that they can then, relate to you and then listen more or want more information on things. So yeah, that's all I've got. Any questions from anybody?
That was awesome, Becca. So I was at a coffee date this morning, and the person I was meeting brought the Story Brand book. That's not the right title. I think Allison's read it before.
It's Building the Story Brand. Yeah.
And so she was like showing me parts. It was just ironic that your call was on stories tonight. But it just reminded me of how important it is to like that relating piece, because they want to see themselves in your story. They want to know like, okay, I can see myself having those same results. You have to show them that the success is possible and that they're relating to the struggles you went through. And that's why it's also important to show the struggles and not just the outcome. Like they want to know where you were at before. So if you really want to deep dive into stories, that's a great book.
That's a great follow-up, Heidi. And yes, so I took a couple notes as I was listening to Becca talk. And that whole concept, facts tell, stories sell. Emotions, the emotional attachment you have behind the story is what is going to have that hook and that person feel connected with you and trust you and want to say yes to you. Even if you can spout off all the facts, like it's so powerful. And so, that's a lot of that book is about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. And David Wood and Eric Worre both say the most important part of the story is the before. Like that's where you really want to hone in and polish it, and then quickly say I was introduced and how long, and then have that, conviction statement at the end. So, it just can be so powerful. Think about the people on stage. When you hear a story, which part are you like drawn into them for? Is it all their like success and accolades after? Like, yeah, you want to hear the success is there and the results are possible, but which part really like makes you just like want more from them? It's always the before. So just good to think of. Yeah, and three-way calls, doing three-way calls. I love how she talked about, you know, gathering other people's stories. Just remember that a three-way call is a great way to slide in other people's stories into the conversation. So I love it. Anything else? Okay, so make sure
I'll plug for the three-way call again, just like the power of them, because I just did one on Friday with someone who had lost 100 pounds, with someone on our team who wants to lose a lot of weight. And she's been a product user forever, but just is really struggling. And there was so much power in it. And I'm just reminded of how three-way calls are more than just like a way to help people get started. It's such a powerful way to serve and add value to people. Like that call was not about me and my business. That was about how can I help these people live better lives. And it's amazing when you have those connections and can really watch someone's, like their own light go off because they're inspired by someone else that you connected them with. So.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a good week. And you should have seen the exciting things. So free shipping this week at just $150 orders. And then also the salted caramel shake coming out tomorrow. So I'm actually going to blend one up yet tonight and make my picture for the morning because I still have salted caramel from last time. I really liked it. So just be thinking through how you're going to share that with your network or follow-ups or all the different things. And then you'll see the email come tomorrow with the details for, you know, things to be working on this week. And then just a reminder, be thinking like, who are you getting on the call next week? Who are you getting on the call the week after? These calls, I know it's the holiday, so I get it, but the point of this is to be growing the calls with new people every single week. And I'm going to continue to challenge us to be saying, your business is as strong as the new people that you're bringing in. Product, of course, absolutely. I know with the challenges coming, we have, you know, such a great avenue for that, but then also from a business standpoint. So it's going to be a good fall. It's exciting. Okay. And it's funny. I'm freaking out because I see my face twice on the screen with Becca's share screen and then also. So it's kind of funny. So, okay.
All right.
There we go. Okay. Have a good night, you guys. Bye.
Bye.